Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and this is the closest thing I have to a Santa hat, I guess, so bear with me a little bit, but it is Christmas morning. That is why I am dressed completely as lazy as can be, and I'm out in the garage today because doing a little bit of work on bikes today. Got a couple areas in the corner building race bikes for Anaheim 1 because, well, we're 12 days away from the season beginning. And that's why I'm finally going to sit here and do a quick little announcement on the actual team itself for the 2020 Supercross season. I'm going to go through and do kind of just a short overview of each rider, why they were picked, or how they actually ended up on the team in the first place, basically. And over next week, you'll see a couple interviews with each guy. Actually, one of them will drop, I believe, tomorrow morning. I guess to go ahead and kick off, if you didn't see a PR this week, if you don't follow general moto news, we did announce the team. It is officially called FXR Chaparral Honda. Of course, a lot of people probably recognize the Chaparral logo. Chaparral Motorsports has been in the sports for years. They, of course, sponsor most of the stuff I do on this channel. The old yellow arch here is pretty iconic. Jeremy McGrath's team ran it back in the day. We've seen it in different iterations with different teams over the years, but really excited to have them on board. FXR is a really big sponsor in the team. They are our gear sponsor. A few people might recognize the brand's a little bit newer. They have a huge background in the snow industry, like Snowcross. If you're in any of that, you've seen them. But the moto gear for them, I've always kind of made motocross gear since they started in the late 90s. They've done it on and off, but they've really been making a big push the past 4 years or so. So they came on board really big. A couple of our riders were already kind of involved with them, so it was kind of just a natural carryover per se. And their Honda's behind me. We actually got a little bit of support directly from Honda. We were able to get some loaner bikes for these guys, some equipment for them to ride for the year, some parts budget, some good stuff like that to make this doable, because having the liquid funds to just go out and buy a bunch of motorcycles is kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah, I'll go through and do an interview this week. When we build out one of the race bikes, I'm going to go through and talk more about the components, get into more of the direct sponsors that are throughout the bike, being that, yeah, putting together a first-year team with no infrastructure is definitely difficult. So there's still a lot of stuff that is just rolling in this last week. So we just finally got about everything to start building the race bike. So we'll go ahead and do a video on that, walk you guys through it. I really want to take the time to also this year go through everything we do to the bikes. I don't want to keep anything per se secret or weird. We have a lot of great brands in this team, and they do a lot to help us. So I'd like to kind of take that moment to go and explain everything we do to the bikes and why. But yeah, let's kick it off with riders. If you follow me on social media, follow the team's new social media, which, if you don't mind, it's down below. Look at the description, look at my first comment, is the Instagram link. If you wouldn't mind going and following the team page, that'd be awesome. But if you've seen it, you've probably started to figure out the riders. First and foremost, I mentioned in the last video, the reason I ended up doing this team was to help a rider that I had watched all year that I knew towards the end of the year wasn't actually going to get any help, but I really felt that he deserved something. That is Jerry Robin. Anybody that follows Jerry's story at all from last year knows it was his second full year of doing Supercross and outdoors, and he did it completely out of his van. Straight privateer style, worked road construction in Minnesota for months to save up the money, had one sponsor get him a bike, he financed another, put away as much cash as he could working, and pretty much just drove around in his van to every West Coast Supercross, to all the outdoor nationals. He was his own wrench at almost every race, going to the line by himself, just driving week in, week out. And at times, you know, he was on last year at KTM. There were times he was in outdoors, the top finishing KTM 250. He still didn't get a ride. At Unadilla, he ran 4th place for like over 20 minutes. And Supercross was a little rough for him for crashes, but in time qualifying, dude was near or inside the top 10 all the time. Just amazing speed. I talked to Jerry Law, and I knew towards the end outdoors that it didn't sound like anything was coming together. So we talked about it. He went home, pretty much sold his bikes right here, packed up all the stuff, and came out to California to live with me. So he's been out here for the last like 3 months. Pretty much just living here in the house with me. Started riding when we got bikes in, started training and getting ready for this year. So he was the first reason I went out to do this. And originally the idea was I was just going to help him, maybe in a van, find some bikes, some stuff like that. But that kind of just steamrolled into what it is now. And the second person involved, but I'll get a little more to explaining his situation later. So Jerry was kind of the first first person that I really wanted to take the opportunity to help. And then from there, a lot of people see my content, of course, that we do together is Jeff Walker. I really wanted to find something to help him out for the year. So we talked a little bit, but I'll explain his situation was next year a little bit later. The second person that also came, or the third person that came along after, was actually when I went out to the WW Ranch National to bring some stuff to Jeff and help Jerry a little bit. I stayed at my friend Justin Starling's house, and I knew talking to him that he was planning on doing 450 privateer the next year. He was going to take a band. He had some bike stuff lined up, kind of roughly knew what he was going to do. And we had talked about a little bit if he wanted to take one more shot 250s. Justin is, I think, 27 years old. Jerry's 22, by the way. But Justin was kind of on the fence. He'd want to do a full year of 450s, but he also knows, it's kind of a pain to do it completely on your own. So he hit me up partway after I'd stayed at his house and basically asked if he could get involved and come on board because he wanted to give 250s another go, another full season under his belt. Because last year he was fairly well prepared coming in, but got hurt, I think, literally the week of A1 I think first practice at A1, and he rode with a fractured wrist for most of the season. Justin has a huge amount of Supercross experience, of course. You don't really see him in the summer. He races a lot in Germany and Europe, a lot of the European Supercrosses, so he kind of, in a sense, is a little bit of a Supercross specialist. So he's been a friend of mine for a long time. Wanted to see what he could do back on Hondas. That's where he spent the majority of his amateur career. At one point, he was one of American Honda's probably like top 2 amateur kids, top 3 kids in the country during his amateur days. So we're able to kind of bring him back to home per se. Same thing, Justin moved out here a little bit after the season. He's been going back and forth to Germany to finish out his Supercross season there. And then the next person who came up, it was actually through kind of a connection through a sponsor of ours. I know Chris Bliss fairly well. I worked with him when I was a suspension technician for Enzo Racing. I worked with him with the NFAB Tylube Yamaha team. I believe that was 2013. That was the first time I met Chris. And we've always BS'd on off over the years of the races. I always check up on him. I usually see him a couple times a year, even locally here in California. He's based in Arizona because sponsoring the team Race Tech, Wyatt, Rob, so those guys there are really close with him. Chris, almost regardless of what team he's been on over the years, he pretty much ends up running their suspension, even if he has to pay for run different team stickers over it or something. Chris has a really tight connection with those guys and a big strong belief in them. So he's always staying at their house, and Race Tech was coming on board because they were really involved with Jerry's program. I've done quite a bit of stuff with them over the years, and they really want to offer up not only like help us on the suspension side, even with some of the motor stuff. They do have kind of a motor program down there now for a lot on the cylinder head side. So Rob started talking about later, like, hey, he's like, I don't know what Chris is going to do next year. He's got some offers, but he's not really excited with any of them. It mostly came down to the program. I think he had some decent offers on the table in terms of financial value, but it wasn't with the people he wanted to work with. It wasn't the program that he felt that he needed. And most of the people I was working with are the people he wanted in his corner. So we're able to kind of come together and figure out something that would work for him, which I'm excited. Of course, Chris is 32. He's a big veteran in a sense in the sport. He's extremely experienced. He actually just picked up the Australian 250 Supercross title just a few weeks ago, also riding a Honda, riding some of the equipment that we use here. He took over there. We helped him out with some mapping and some other stuff he was able to take over there and race with. So he's got a lot of experience with what we're starting with. And he's also just really good to have around the team for like Jerry and starting stuff. Chris is so experienced with bike setup. He's a monster in the whoops. He's just a really downright Supercross specialist, and he's a really kind, easy to work with guy. And for us, kind of in a sense of a team captain role, he's really valuable to the team for some of the connections he was able to bring, and also at the same time being able to help some of the riders on the team at the races, at the practice track, just with all the knowledge and experience he has. So we're able to get Chris on board. That's definitely probably the biggest name in the team, and I've definitely had quite a few people approach me like, how the heck did you get Blois on your team? And what it really comes down to is what I said before. We both kind of work with the same people that he trusts, that he really want to continue those relationships with. And that's what we were able to offer, is him the ability to continue those relationships going into this year. Lastly, the Jeff Walker situation. So when some of the stuff for the team first started getting announced, his name wasn't popping up. I was having people hit me up because they thought for sure he was on the team, which he has always been planned to be. Definitely always really wanted to help Jeff this year, try to get him into Supercross, but honestly, we originally were planning on him doing the full Supercross schedule. But I mean, if anybody follows him, they know he's a pre-med student. He has a lot on his plate, and this off season between his school schedule and track situation or stuff, it wasn't manageable. We were trying to make it work for him to write East or something, and he finally just sat down and we talked about it, and he really wanted to focus on outdoors since he'll finally be out of school, be able to put a full run towards it. I am helping him and Robin after Supercross through the outdoor season, so that is kind of Jeff's main focus at this point. So sometime over the next couple weeks, he'll actually be out here, get to ride a little bit of Supercross, kind of get used to it, because definitely Jeff's goal is to eventually get into Supercross next season and kind of convince him like, hey, instead of starting cold turkey after this outdoor season, while all the guys are here, you can learn, come out, get used to it, get on the bikes, just mostly get that experience under the belt, so when it comes to after outdoors rolling into the following season, that it's just not such a shock to the system. And pun on words, shock. Speaking of shock, that's how we ended up with our last guy since. Jeff wasn't going to do Supercross. We originally had planned on helping our guys in total, and that's what we had for bikes, parts, all this allotment stuff, and contracts. We ended up with Cody Shock. Cody is supported by a few of our sponsors, like Boys in FXR, so we definitely had guys like, hey, keep an eye on him if something comes up, if somebody crashes, if there's a filling gig, anything, keep him in mind. He ended up with a 2-digit number last year, number 75, his first full season of doing outdoors. But he's never really had a season of Supercross. Last year, I believe he did East Coast. He did a couple East Coast rounds, May night show, but hasn't really gone a full season under belt. He was originally going to ride a 450 this season. He's only like 145 pounds. So just a couple weeks ago, we were able to get him on a bike, start getting him ready. So he's actually going to race Supercross this season for us as well. But that's enough info for this video. I'm going to break down one next week of what coast the guys are riding, because there's actually been some interesting switch up based on just where guys' preparation was, where we're at program, getting stuff together. We decided to do something a little bit unique in that aspect. But like I said, those are kind of the riders for now. The guys are going to be doing a mix. A couple of the guys are going to be doing a little bit of 450 at some point this season, but the main focus is the 250 class as well. I've also had people asking me the last couple of days how anybody can support the team. I have some stuff coming up on that. Of course, there'll be it's some stuff to buy. There will be just different ways and avenues that we have for people to follow along the team. A lot of content that'll be on this channel from during race season. But for the time being, hit subscribe, thumbs up, like if you can. As I mentioned before, if you can follow the team page, Instagram's down below. That would actually be a massive help for now. And for everybody that's been following along so far, thank you so much for your patience. I really hope you guys enjoy the content and what we're going to be doing in the 2020 Supercross season. And once again, for everybody, have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, enjoy your time with your families, and we will see you at Anaheim 1.